Beneath the quiet soil of Florida lies a labyrinth of stone, ancient, silent, indifferent. Passages carved not by hands, but by centuries of patient erosion. Corridors so narrow they force the human body into shapes it was never meant to hold. In these spaces, confidence can feel like courage, until it becomes a mistake. On December 27, 2003, a group of teenagers entered one such labyrinth. What awaited them was not a collapse, not a flood, but a single turn in the rock, a near 180-degree twist that should never have been attempted. In caves, danger does not announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly at the bend. Viewer discretion is advised. The morning air outside Boy Scout Cave in Florida was mild, almost comforting. 8 boys from the San Antonio Boy Village arrived with 2 counselors expecting a routine adventure, a structured exploration through one of the region's better-known cave systems. Among them were Michael Charoux, 15, and Javik Henderson, 16. Both athletic, curious, and eager to push a little further than the rest. Boy Scout Cave had a reputation. Its limestone corridors were dry and structurally stable. No history of sudden flooding, no unstable ceilings. Just tight, winding passageways that demanded patience and control. The counselors made a cautious decision. Concerned that their larger frames might limit mobility in the cave's narrow sections, they remained near the entrance. A small fire crackled outside as they waited. Inside, 9 flashlights were divided among 8 boys. Just after noon, they descended. The temperature within the cave stabilized at 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Steady, almost neutral, but caves are deceptive. Temperature alone does not determine comfort. Stillness does. Immobility does. Michael and Henderson naturally moved toward the front. The beam of their lights sliced thin lines through darkness as they crawled deeper, limestone brushing against their shoulders and backs. The air grew heavier with depth. Sounds became intimate. The scrape of fabric against stone, the measured rhythm of breath. An hour into the exploration, they reached a section known informally among local explorers as the Hairpin Curve. And this is where everything changed. The passage ahead narrowed into a sharp bend, almost 180 degrees, twisting so abruptly that anyone entering would disappear from view within seconds. It wasn't a collapse. It wasn't unstable. It was simply unforgiving. The opening was barely wide enough for a single body to pass through at a time. Rough limestone edges protruded from both sides. The floor was uneven, scattered with small rocks. The ceiling pressed low, forcing movement into a slow, sideways crawl. The group hesitated. Without the counselors inside, uncertainty lingered in the silence. Michael spoke calmly. If he couldn't pass, he would back out. No one else would attempt it without guidance. That reassurance was enough. He entered first. The rock scraped along his jacket as he exhaled and compressed his chest to slide forward. The turn required his hips to twist sharply while his shoulders rotated in the opposite direction. It was awkward, but manageable. He made it through. Henderson followed immediately behind. At first, the maneuver seemed similar, a controlled twist, a careful slide, but midway through the bend, his body locked into a position that offered no leverage. He tried to adjust, nothing. He inhaled and felt the stone press harder against his ribs. He exhaled, but could not shift backward. Forward was blocked. Backward was impossible. He was stuck. Panic is not immediate in caves. It builds. Henderson's breathing quickened, echoing sharply in the confined passage. He attempted to reposition his arm as the limestone pinned it awkwardly against his torso. His hips were wedged at the apex of the bend. Michael sensed the struggle. From just beyond the curve, he turned back and forced himself into the constricted space again, pressing shoulder first into the narrow gap beside his friend. The walls were cold, colder than the air suggested. Limestone absorbs warmth steadily, relentlessly. The 2 teenagers were now compressed together within the tightest section of the cave. Michael pushed against Henderson's legs. He tried lifting his shoulder. He attempted to create space by shifting his own weight against the rock. Every effort required oxygen. Every movement drained strength. Minutes stretched. The cave remained silent except for strained breathing and the muted grind of fabric against stone. Henderson's ribs ached, sharp edges dug into his side. His legs were bent at unnatural angles, circulation slowing. The more he struggled, the tighter the rock seemed to hold him. Behind them, in the wider chamber, the remaining boys waited. Their flashlight beams flickered intermittently as batteries weakened. Then something unexpected happened. Michael's movement slowed, his voice faded. He had been exerting himself in a confined space with minimal airflow. Immobility combined with exhaustion began to take its toll. His vision blurred, his arms weakened, and without warning, his body went limp against the limestone. Michael Shiru lost consciousness inside the Hairpin Curve. Henderson felt the shift instantly. One moment there was resistance beside him. The next, dead weight. He shouted for help. His voice echoed unnaturally through the passage, amplifying the fear. The boys in the wider section scrambled closer, their lights shaking. Batteries dimmed. Someone whispered about oxygen, about the fire outside consuming air. Panic spread faster than logic. Eventually, faced with no tools and no strength to free them, the boys made a devastating decision. They had to retreat and alert the counselors. Emerging from the cave, breathless and shaken, they relayed the crisis. The fire was extinguished immediately. A 911 call was placed. Within an hour, rescue teams arrived, aware that navigating Boy Scout Cave with equipment would be slow and physically punishing. Inside, rescuers first located the remaining boys. Pale, trembling, convinced the air was thinning. Measurements quickly confirmed oxygen levels were normal. But deeper inside, 2 lives hung in uncertainty. Rescue teams advanced carefully, carrying harnesses, thermal blankets, and chisels. The narrow passages forced them to crawl, twist, and maneuver heavy equipment through stone corridors designed by nature, not for rescue operations. When they reached the Hairpin Curve, the scene was stark. Henderson was conscious but fading, pale, sweating, his speech sluggish. His extremities trembled uncontrollably. Beyond him, Michael lay motionless. Though the cave maintained 72 degrees, the limestone had been leaching their body heat for over an hour. In confined conditions, immobility accelerates hypothermia. Rescuers assessed quickly. There was no room for error. Chisels struck stone. Each metallic echo reverberated sharply through the cramped passage. Dust filled the air. Progress was slow, painfully slow. Bodies contorted to create leverage. After more than an hour of chipping and repositioning, Henderson was finally freed. He exhaled shakily as rescuers pulled him from the bend. A thermal blanket wrapped tightly around him as he was guided carefully back through the maze. But Michael remained trapped. His breathing was shallow, his pulse faint. The urgency intensified. Rescuers widened the passage incrementally, shaving limestone inch by inch. Nearly 2 hours later, they created enough space. Michael was extracted carefully, secured in a harness. His skin was cold, his pulse weak but present. The journey back to the surface felt endless. Every turn required coordination. Every narrow section demanded precision. But step by step, they moved forward. And finally, light. When they emerged from the cave entrance, emergency medical teams were waiting. Relief mixed with tension. Both boys were rushed to the hospital immediately. Core temperatures were dangerously low. Medical teams worked methodically to warm their bodies and stabilize vital signs. Henderson remained conscious throughout treatment. Michael did not regain consciousness for nearly 24 hours, but he did wake up. Both survived. The decision for counselors to remain outside had been made cautiously, thoughtfully. Yet the absence of experienced guidance inside a complex cave system proved critical. Boy Scout Cave had always been considered stable. It was not a collapse that nearly claimed 2 lives. Not flooding, not structural failure, it was geometry. A single 180-degree twist in limestone, unforgiving and indifferent. The incident became a powerful reminder within the caving community. Stability does not equal safety. Preparation must match environment. Size of passage matters, supervision matters, because in caves, danger rarely shouts. It waits in silence, and sometimes it waits at the turn.